Hi, this is Robert Polinick, the owner of Brutal Iron Gym. In today's videos, I'm going to share some glute training tips. And these are actually tips for training the lower glutes to make sure you build kind of the bottom shelf and kind of the pop to the glutes. So I have a little station here that I'll be doing all my exercises. So let's get started with the tips. Go. Okay, our first tip is going to be prepare the glutes for movement. So we're going to start with a stretch. I have a blue pad down here, and that's what I'll be using to kind of pad my knee from the ground. You can use anything, yoga mat, you can use sweatshirt, t-shirt, whatever. You can go hardcore and just put your knee right on the ground. But what we're going to do is actually a cross-legged glute stretch. And this opens up the glute muscles, especially the external rotation, the small little muscles inside the glute. And that improves our range of motion for the glutes when we do the kind of exercises, glute exercises. And it helps us just incorporate more of the fibers. So I'm going to set this up and talk you through a real quick variation of it. So what we'll do is I would start with having a knee down on the mat. So I'll go ahead and I'll select my right knee so you can see it best, and I'll kind of tuck it in here. So what we want to do is I want to cross my other leg over like that, and this one's down by the ankle. So the other leg, the knee of the other leg goes down by the ankle. I'm putting all my weight on this front leg, and I'm going to drop to my elbows. For a lot of people, that alone is a big stretch. You can also sit back, like further into the glute, or you can come forward and lean out, and that'll open up the glute as well. So you just kind of hang out where you feel like it's tight, and typically I would hang out for 30 to 60 seconds, and then I would switch legs across the other one, and again drop down on my elbows, and I can either sit back, or I can move forward and then out to the outside. So that'll be our first way to prepare. So again, you want to do that on each side, 30 to 60 seconds. If it's tight at all, definitely hang out for 60 seconds. If you don't feel anything, at least give it 30 seconds to get it kind of started, to see if there's anything that might creep up in tightness as you sit in that position. Okay, so that's tip number one, stretch the glutes. Okay, so tip number two is to actually stretch the front side of our thighs. And the main reason why is for us to work our glutes the best. Let me set this down for a second. We're going to need to be able to rotate our hips to make sure we're getting a good contraction when we do like hinge movements. Part of what could be a limiting factor for us getting that rotation is just real tight muscles on the front side of our hips. So often when people are sitting all day, if they're sitting in a chair, these muscles stay very tight, and then when they try to like change their hip rotation, this is actually pulled tight. So they have a tight lower back, they have kind of like a loose abdomen, they can't really flex and work their abs tight to protect their lower back, and they get some pinching pains. So what I have set up here, and you can see there's this little like black pad right there. So we're going to use that as a way to stretch our quadriceps, the front of the thighs. You can use anything at all that is comfortable enough for you to put your foot up there. So what I'm going to do is I throw my foot up there. Whoop, there we go. And then I want to have it about the height of my hips. This is actually about one notch too high. The reason why I know that is it's causing me to push forward, like to tilt my hips forward too much. So I would like to be able to keep my hips neutral. I'm going to lower that down one. And now, when I throw my foot up there, now I feel like I can kind of maintain a more neutral hip position. I'm not tilted forward to try to get my foot up there. So I can tuck my abs in and kind of remain nice and straight. This is causing a lot of stretch on the front of my thigh. That's what we want. So if this alone is a big stretch, you would hold this for 30 to 60 seconds. If it's really tight, hold it for 60 seconds. If it's not tight at all, at least try it for 30. You want to be able to kind of get your butt to touch your heel. So if I can't get that to happen, I'm definitely too tight. What we want to avoid doing is letting our stomach go like this. So we want to make sure we keep our abs braced, and I'm pushing my butt back to my foot, not leaning back to my foot. So you just want to push your hips back. So you're going to maintain that stretch on that side, like we said, for 30 to 60 seconds. I'll then just throw the other leg up. Same thing, nice neutral hip position. Try not to be tilted forward. You're going to hold this again for 30 to 60 seconds. So combining the glute stretch we just talked about and this stretch, I would typically do that as part of my rounds of warm-up. So if I was doing a squat or if I was doing another exercise, I would do the glute stretch, the quad stretch, and then the first set of that other exercise. Add a little bit of weight to the other exercise, do the stretches again, and then go to the second set of that first exercise. So you kind of do it as a circuit with your warm-ups. So that's tip number 2, is to stretch the front of your thighs. Okay, along with those stretches, the 2 main exercises I'll be doing today to show you in the first circuit is going to be squatting with our camber bar. A camber bar is a bar you can see where the weights are going to hang lower than where the bar goes on my upper back. So you'll see this in a second when I'm squatting with it. But the benefit of that is, since the weight is lower, it involves less upper back kind of postural tightness and responsibility. So my upper back doesn't have to work so hard to maintain position, and it allows more of the workload to go into my hips. The other tip, real quick, as you can see, I have plates on the ground here. And what that's doing is it's allowing me to, depending on people's limb lengths, like thigh length, their calf tightness, and some other things, other issues, sometimes when they squat, they can't get very low, and they end up kind of getting folded forward, and it feels like a lot of stress in their lower back. So, for example, they might try to squat, and it kind of folds them over like this, and that's really uncomfortable. It's going to get a lot of stress in the lower back to squat and be folded over. So if I put my heels on these plates, what it does is it allows me to squat more upright. So I can squat in a better position to actually use my leg muscles rather than my lower back. So what I have is just 10-pound plates. Now, can you use Olympic lifting shoes? Yes. However, I'm going to be pairing this exercise with a variation of an RDL stiff leg deadlift, which requires a flat foot. So that way I can get the most stretch of my hamstrings and glutes. So if I was wearing a raised heel in an Olympic lifting shoe for my squats, I wouldn't be able to superset the RDL. So a cheat around that, and a lot cheaper, is to just use plates like this. So if I was doing 1-rep maxes or powerlifting or something like that, I probably want to get into the Olympic heels, or obviously Olympic lifting. But for kind of body shaping, glute training, stuff like this, we don't need them. So you can get away with this kind of stuff, and it's just a little bit easier. So let me show you a set of these. So again, since the weight is going to be hanging lower, it's less stress in my upper and kind of thoracic spine, and it's less stress in the lower back. Puts all the stress down in the thighs and the glutes, which is what we want. I'm also going to be doing a pause squat where I stop at the bottom to make sure I squeeze my glutes to come back up. I don't want to come down forward and drive through the front of my legs. I want to be a little more uprighted, sit down nice and low, and squeeze my glutes as I come up. So let me show you a set. Okay, so I'll get my feet set. I'll come down and pause and squeeze the glutes. 1. Pause, squeeze the glutes. 2. Pause, squeeze the glutes. 3. Pause, squeeze the glutes. 4. And pause, squeeze the glutes. 5. Good. So, by using a lower placement of weights. Now, if you don't have a camber bar, what can you do? They do actually sell kind of like hanging devices that have the plates, and it just slides on the end of a regular bar. So if we were to look at a regular bar, here it would just slide onto the end. It would come down and hang out. So you can get those. Those are great. They're fine. They work really well. You can also just go to a kick-ass cool gym that has a camber bar. So my dad actually made this one. So yay for us. But it does help. Whether you have that or not, you can also incorporate pause squats and the use of those plates so you can be in a more uprighted position. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing my rounds of the glute stretch, the quad stretch, and warming up the squat. And then I'll show you some tips when we get into the RDL. Cool. Okay, I'm doing some warm-ups of the squats. I wanted to give a couple extra tips. So some ways in which we can kind of better include the hips and the glutes is to make sure when we have our feet set, whether you're on the plates or not, we want to go ahead and push our big toe. So if we think of my hand as our feet, I want to push my big toes down into the ground. And then I want to try to like twist a little bit, like I'm trying to open like a lid on a can. So you just want to twist a little bit. I don't want to twist so much that my feet actually slide, but I want to create a little bit of twist, making sure my big toe stays down into the ground. What you'll feel is that tightens up your hips. That activates the glutes even more. Then as I would squat down, I want to have my knees go towards my pinky toes. I don't want my knees to come in like this. That's going to overload my adductors in my lower back. We're going to miss the glutes. So I want to push my knees out towards my pinky toes as I'm twisting the ground with my feet. So I would push my knees out, 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 here, and then I would squeeze my glutes to stand up. I don't need to push my knees so far that my big toe would come off the ground. I want to make sure my big toe stays down. I'm going to rotate the floor, like grab the floor and kind of twist the floor a little bit. Push my knees out towards my pinky toes, hit the bottom of the squat, and then squeeze my glutes to stand up. Since we're training our glutes, one of the things you want to think of when you select what weight to use on the bar is, can you still feel the glutes activated? If I squat too heavy, I can move the weight. But I might feel it in my quads, I might feel it in my lower back, I might feel it everywhere else. So you want to make sure you use a weight that you can still feel in your glutes. So I'll show you those tips with this weight here. So I'll get it under the bar, make sure my back, my shoulder blades are squeezed together, so my back is nice and stable. I'll step back, get my feet on the plates. I'm going to push my big toe down into the ground, push my knees out towards my pinky toes, stop, and squeeze the glutes. 1. Knees out, stop, squeeze the glutes. 2. Knees out, stop, squeeze the glutes. 3. Knees out, stop, squeeze the glutes. 4. Knees out, stop, squeeze the glutes. 5. Good. So those tips will help make sure that your glutes stay activated. So big toe into the ground, twist the floor, then push your knees out towards your pinky toes. Make sure you use a weight, you can always feel your glutes. Okay, another tip that'll help is when you're lifting heavy weights for squats or deadlifts or anything, you might feel pain in your lower back. One of the things we can do to fight against that is to make sure our core, our midsection, is braced properly. A quick tip we can use is before you would accept the weight, so before I would unrack a squat to walk back, before I would push a deadlift off the floor, so before I accept the weight onto my body, I want to mimic the sensation of stopping myself from peeing. So you want to hold your pee. So flex the muscles in the pelvic floor. That feels like that. You'll notice at the bottom of your midsection, the abdomen, the pelvic floor, tightens. So you want to mimic that sensation of stopping yourself from peeing or hold your pee. Then you want to take a big breath, but we want to make sure we breathe into the belly, not the chest. So I don't want to breathe where my chest lifts. Like that. That actually undoes tightnesses in here. So instead we want to breathe in our belly. So one of the tips that I use is I'll take my fingertips and I'll put them just lightly against each other on my belly. Then when I breathe in, my fingertips will separate. Like that. And you can see them come apart. So from the side again, I'll have my fingertips there. I would breathe in when my chest doesn't raise. My belly comes out. So I'll do that again. Like that. So you hold the pee, breathe into the belly, and then you want to hold your breath. You want to kind of lock it in. What this does is fills the midsection with pressure and tightness, so that way when we do a squat or a deadlift, our body can't get folded over, or we won't kink our back like this. It keeps everything nice and braced and stable. So hold the pee, breathe into the belly, and then hold the breath during the contraction of the lift. Okay, give that a try. Okay, so here's another video of me putting all those tips together. So I'll put in the breathing tip for good bracing. So hold the pee, belly breath, then hold the breath, and you'll see me reset that between each rep. And I'll have my big toes pressed into the ground, a little bit of twist in the feet, and then the knees push out towards the pinky toe. And remember, we're pausing to get better activation of the glutes as we drive up from the bottom. Okay, the exercise I'm pairing with my squats today is an RDL from the floor. So an RDL is a Romanian deadlift. What that means is it's a deadlift in which my shins will remain vertical. So as I go to grab the bar, my shins are going to stay in place. I'll grab the bar and squeeze up through my hamstrings and glutes. Whereas a normal deadlift, my knees would come forward as I would grab the bar. So this is a vertical shin variation of the deadlift called a Romanian deadlift. This helps me focus on my upper hamstrings and my glutes. So this is a really good exercise to build the glutes. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to do it in a different way than what most people do. When most people lift to the top of a deadlift, they overextend the movement. So they'll get to the top and they bring their hips through and their shoulders kind of either come above their hips or even behind, and they end up contracting in their lower back rather than keeping the stress in their lower glutes. So we're going to do what's called a shortened range of motion lockout. Now this is actually the full range of motion for the glutes. We're just cutting out the extra range of motion that would be from the lower back. This would be similar in concept to a lateral raise. If I did a lateral raise for my shoulders, I'm just trying to build the middle muscle of my shoulder. Can I raise my arm higher? Yes, I can raise it up over my head, but that is no longer the part of the range of motion that works that muscle. So we just stop when that muscle is maximized. We don't continue moving. Just like if I'm doing a Romanian deadlift or stiff leg deadlift or a regular deadlift, as I come up to the top, I want to squeeze my glutes, but I don't want to continue to move through the range of motion that doesn't actually use my glutes. So I'll do a set, and then I'll show you a side angle, and we'll kind of get a little more details into it. But again, we're looking to flex the bottom of the glute, the seam between the glute and the hamstring at the top of the lift. So I'll come up and I'll squeeze, but I'm going to leave my shoulders actually slightly in front of my hips. And as long as my glutes are flexed, it's going to be safe on my back and everything. I'll be okay in the lift. I won't be in danger. We can also implement that cue where we said hold the P, belly breath, lock the air. That helps protect us as well. We're just going to get a full contraction through the glute, but not that extra range of motion. So I'll show you just 5 reps. Now, if you notice on those reps, I kept my head down, my chest was kind of forward. Again, that's totally okay. We're just looking to squeeze the side of the glute, the bottom of the glute, not our lower back. Okay, we'll now show you a view from the side. Okay, so here is a side view of the shortened range of motion lockout. Again, this would be the lockout that we would apply to know that we're targeting the lower glutes, not the upper glutes or the lower back, targeting the lower glutes. This would be on any variation of a hinge movement. This can be done on conventional deadlifts, sumo deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts of either stance, Romanian deadlifts, anything at all, okay, whether it's a barbell, dumbbell, whatever. Anytime you get to the top of a hinge movement and you want to be flexing your glutes, but with the purpose of building the lower glute, not the upper glute or stressing the lower back, this is the way you want to lock out the movement. Again, as we explained, I'm going to be doing an RDL, so my shins are going to stay vertical. I'm going to sit back and stretch into this tissue, the lower glute tissue. As I come up, I want to squeeze that muscle forward, but I'm going to leave my shoulders in front of my hips. I'm not going to follow through like this and stress my lower back and my upper glutes. So we'll do 5 reps. So that lockout, where you keep your head down, your shoulders forward, you squeeze through the glutes. You're trying to flex just the bottom corner of the glute, not the top or the low back. That's going to help you build much better glutes. A nice full development starting with like kind of a pop from the bottom, a fullness in the middle, but not too much on top. So that's a lockout tip for any variation of hinge movements to ensure you're growing your lower glutes. Cool. Thank you for watching today's video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any topics that you would like covered in future videos, shoot us an email at brittlirongym@gmail.com and let us know. Also, if you'd like monthly programming that covers these concepts and more for all goals, check out our website at www.brittlirongym.com. Thank you for watching. Hope you tune in again.